Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Shirley Paul. I am an original Brooklyn girl, but Haiti is in my heart. My parents, I am the proud daughter of immigrants. And today we are here on the Haitian American Caucus, part of our weekly live series where we bring information and just the best of the best to you. I'm here today joined with my co-host, Josu Pierre.
Josie, oui, non, moi c'est
Yeah. In a Creole, ma parler. Josie here. But today, before he greets you guys, we have an amazing, amazing series for you, a show today. So if you haven't shared this on your stream yet, on your live, please do so. Invite your friends. As we close out Black History Month, we know Black history is living history. So we don't just look back at everything else, but we look at what's happening in our communities and especially within the Caribbean diaspora. So today we have a special show, but I would love for Josier Pierre to give you guys an amazing greeting and say hello.
For some of us, it's still morning, so good morning, everyone. My name is Josier Pierre, but you guys can call me Josh, just like my co-host Shirley calls me Josh. Listen, we have a great show for you guys. As you know, we've been doing a series on COVID and a series on Black History Month. A lot of things have been going on, but we have to take the time to actually look at Black talent, Black excellence, and give it an opportunity to flourish. And part of the way we do that on HACTV is by bringing up-and-coming talent, letting them tell their story, and letting them show you some of the products that they've been working on. So we have a great talent today. And with that, I'll pass it on to you, Shirley.
Okay, thank you, Josier Pierre, aka Josh. So today we are confronting COVID, a snapshot of courage. And as I said, as we close out Black History Month and reminding everyone that it is living history, we are bringing a dynamic young man who has an experience that is, this show cannot capture all of it. But we are so proud to have with us today Daveed Baptiste, who is an artist, a photographer. And he is, and I must say this because I'm so excited for him as an attorney that works in the area of immigration. Oftentimes, he is a what would we say?
Naturalized
Naturalized citizen. So that means he is now a U.S. citizen. But you are going to hear so much from him and know that while he has taken that oath and he is now going to be granted all the privileges of being a United States citizen, he has not forgot about home, and his story speaks of the courage of that. Without further ado, Daveed Baptiste, say hello to the people and thank you for joining us on HACTV today.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everyone. And thank you so much, Hack, for inviting me and having me share my story and the stories of so many other people. I'm like really excited to be here. Thank you.
So, Daveed, before we get to your wonderful work, you know, in our Haitian cultures and in our Caribbean cultures, period, we like to know where you from, how you got here.
I am from Port-au-Prince, Haiti. And I grew up in Miami, Florida, and I've been living in New York for about 4 years now. This is 4 years going on 5. I'm gonna have a little celebration in a month when it reaches the magical 5. But they say you'll never be a New Yorker if you're not from here.
Well,
No, I'm here.
You know what? You will. You could probably get a little pass. Let's talk to us after the show. But we are happy that you have an experience that includes Haiti, Miami, Florida, and New York, because the work that you're doing is a reflection of all of that. But what I want folks to know today, when we talk about COVID and a snapshot of courage, we are including everything, because we noticed in COVID, while we knew there were a lot of issues existing within our communities, COVID has brought it up to the tides and made it too big to sweep under the rug. And one of the biggest issues and one of the biggest things we think about is mental health. So Daveed has used his art, his talent to bring all of that full circle. So when I was reading about you, I learned about you have like programs, projects, you have Haiti to Hood, you have Let's Talk About It. So we want to talk about it. We want to hear about it. Can you tell us what Let's Talk About It is?
So let's talk about it. Started with the Haiti Cultural Exchange. The Haiti Cultural Exchange mission is to cultivate Haitian artists, and they do a residency program where they're inviting, folks from across Brooklyn to work in the Four Lacus. So the Four Lacus being Canarsie, Flatbush, East Flatbush, Crown Heights, and historically, those are like underserved communities, and some of the communities that have the largest Haitian populations in the U.S. And so, I was one of the artists that was selected to work with the Haiti Cultural Exchange this year. And I'm a designer. I'm a fashion designer. I'm a photographer, and I work in textiles. And before I was doing all those, I was working as a photographer, and I think images can really help people see themselves and reclaim their identities or see a new side of themselves that they haven't seen before. I think images are allowed to heal people and help people work through some of their the things that they're going through. I'm not saying that photography is the work of food or the work of doctors, but that's really what Talk About It is. It's kind of inviting folks who are in pivotal, important moments in their lives, and photographing them and having them share their stories. And through that process, whatever, I can't really describe that energy. I'll try my best today, but I've done it with a few individuals in the neighborhood, and it's been amazing.
So Daveed, before you even got to doing this project, do you have any type of special training, schooling, etc., academia that brought you to this point?
The training does not stop. So when I was living in the 305 in North Miami, I remember my father was an artist, but he was an artist in Haiti. I do it more for my spirit. And now that I'm older, I found out he was doing it for the money, selling big tableaus like back in Port-au-Prince. And
tableau for our guests that are listening, what's a tableau if they're not Haitian?
Oh, it's canvas.
Okay.
So they would cover up the streets, and tourists would purchase them. The church would purchase them. And when I was, so that I felt like was transferred over to me. And when I lived in Miami, I was going to non-for-profits, which were having art programs. And it was a good way to keep kids that were in the hood out of the street. And so I fell in love with going to art programs and classes. And after that, I really wanted to move to New York because, if you're not from New York or don't live in New York's seriously romanticized on television and in movies, especially for creatives. They had the Basquiat documentary, they had Keith Haring documentary. There's just so much, and it creates this world of what New York is. So I said, I'm gonna get a scholarship, and I went to Parsons, and I recently graduated a couple months ago.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Daveed, I have a question for you because you just, Josier asked you a question about how you got in this, your background in terms of the educational support that you have. And again, Parsons, hats off to you. But you also just made a connection about your father and your time also spent in Miami. So just so can we get a little understanding of how you even came to be in Miami, much less coming to New York because of your love of art. So just tell us a little snippet of your background.
So I excuse me. So in my family, we were living in Haiti, and we were, it was decent. But like most people from other countries, you want the American dream, and you want more for your family. Like every single immigrant who's ever come to America. And so, we came here, I believe in 2002 or 2003, and I was about 6 years old. And we had left our mother behind for paperwork reasons. So it was my father, myself, my brother, and my sister, and we moved to Miami, Florida, and North Miami. And for those who don't know, North Miami is also another city that has the largest Caribbean immigrant population, in the U.S., next to New York. And so that's that story of migration. And I often always tell people this. It's interesting because it's a huge part of my work and my sensibility, and the reason that I want to create socially engaged projects and projects that work in the communities. And that's not just an art gallery somewhere that you sip some wine, pass by, and call it a day. So this was like a pivotal point in my life, was, being 6 years old and watching my family do all this labor and work to leave one version of poverty, which was living in Haiti at the time, and then to come to the U.S. and enter another version of poverty. We were moving from housing projects to housing projects throughout North Miami. And so part of the American dream and creating socially engaged work is like a large part of what got me here.
So how was it acculturating? Like, you're coming from Haiti, you're coming, when I was growing up, it felt like outside I was in the United, but when I got inside my house, I was back in Haiti.
Yes.
So how was it for you acculturating as you were going in Haitian culture, but you were moving from these different locations?
That's a great question. That's what Haiti to Hood is all about. It's visually what that culture looks like. And for example, like learning English was, okay, I'm not gonna start with English. I remember that, for example, back when I was in Haiti, it's a Black country.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to the US and seeing white people blew my mind. Because I had never seen white people before. It was like seeing another type of human being, and seeing people that didn't look like me, seeing different shades of skin color, and different ways that people live. That was like a shock. That was like, every day I was like amazed. And so those were some of the, that was like one of my earliest memories. And I think African-American culture also fascinated me, because it was, here were people who looked just like me. We were from the same continent, but we had, there were so many similarities between the two cultures, but also so many differences in terms of style, ways of dressing, ways of like talking to your parents, or customs in the house. And so, a lot of young Haitian youth have to play this game where you kind of juggle between being presentable for white people and the outside world, being presentable for your Black friends, and then being presentable for home, for your culture. So how, you don't want to be excluded out of any of those. And so you're constantly, code switching, which I think, some people talk about it as a negative thing, but I think it's like our superpower.
That's amazing. And I love how you put that together and helped us to conceptualize it, because we've all faced it in varying degrees. As we said, I'm the daughter of immigrants too, so I understand that. So now I want to, so you said something when you first started, that you said images heal, right? And that has stayed with me now, because you talked about why you think your father presented that art versus why you present it. And it sounds like at the end of the day, you guys know art does something to people. It brings them in. And you say you've used a lot of your experiences. So can you help me visualize what does your art look like? What kinds of people and things do you photograph? And what are you hoping to convey?
So, interesting enough, and very weird, when I started off doing portraits, I think, we've all seen those images of Haitians and Haiti, and how CNN, Fox News, National Geographic portray us. And I feel like even when people tried their best to make Haitian folks look good in all our glory, it just didn't hit. It just wasn't hitting. And so coming from that knowledge, I fell in love with portraiture because I loved, like, for example, this is kind of cheesy, but my mom loves the fact that, like, I take photos of her. I had shot I had did a photo shoot for Elle magazine. It was my first job for Elle magazine, and you know, I'm 23, so it's a big deal. I don't want to mess it up. And they said, you know, all the publications at the time were doing COVID stories, and they said, you know, you get to choose one person. I chose my mama, because I wanted to put a Haitian woman who was an essential worker on a magazine like Elle magazine for the world to see, you know, for our faces to be in those places. And, you know, I give you that story because I think that story kind of connects the kind of, the way I see Black folks, the way I see Haitian Americans, and, you know, how I want to portray us in images.
Nice. I love that. So we got to give you your shine. I mean, you're 23 years old. You left Florida. You took a chance. You graduated from Parsons, and you're hitting Elle magazine. And I know I read in your bio you've done something with the New Yorker. So share with us the places your work has been displayed, and what else you got coming, so we can look out for you. Because if you're doing this now, I can tell you, I hope one day we can get to squeeze you in again to show up, because you'll be busy, and I'm so proud of you. So what did you do for the New Yorker?
So the New Yorker, I'm not gonna lie, that was like that changed my life. Mm-hmm. because that became a resume. You know, we're all trying to get our foot in the door. We're all trying to that's why, you know, just work. And sometimes our resumes isn't good enough. So the New Yorker, you know, people started introducing me with that link going, you know, so I start off with that to show the power of publications and people who read stuff about images in our culture. And I started a series 3 years ago called Haiti to Hood. And that was about Haitian American identity and stories being told through the home. So I was building sets. I was making fake homes in my studio space. And the reason I focus on the home is because growing up, I was not allowed to go anywhere. Haitian folks are very protective of their kids, especially when you just come to the US and you're not so sure about the country. Yeah. So school, church, and home were like the three places that you were allowed to stay in. And so I spent a lot of time inside my home. There were so many dramas, so many stories, it's kind of like all those television shows that we watch that takes place like inside somebody's house. But I wanted the Haitian version. And for example, my father, he had an import-export business, which like a lot of like, it's a very like a lot of Haitian men do that kind of business. You know, you buy merchandise from the US, you wrap it up, package it, you make a doom, and you ship it off to Haiti. And, you know, that was kind of like a very specific economy that was very popular in Miami. So our home never looked like home. We had 10 microwaves stacked up in the living room, 3 refrigerators in the kitchen, getting ready to be shipped off. You know, our home was part merchandise, part home. And so I remember the brown leather couches in my home and the cracks that were in there. I remember there was this one time there was like a broken window, but we couldn't afford to get it fixed. So we covered it up with duct tape. And so I speak about, when I speak about Haiti to Hood, it's a series that takes place in studio sets where I'm building these worlds, and it's really about kind of telling a story about Haitian American identity within the confines of the home, the things we have in our homes, and the stories they tell about us. I remember going to my grandma's home, my aunt's homes, and seeing the huge, I forgot what they're called.
Say it in Creole, we'll help you out.
Ti ba gen tout imaj yo la dan, li gen imaj grandma, sel.
It's a China set, like a China cabinet.
Yeah, yes.
So right now, Daveed, we have some of your artwork displayed for everyone to see. I don't know if you can see it as well, but we'd love.
I can definitely see it. Thank you.
Yeah, we'd love for you to give us some descriptions and the meaning behind some of these pieces.
So, for example, this plaid background and the checker and like the entire plaid set, it for me, like gingham And certain plaids I associate it, even though it's universal, I strongly associate it back to Haiti.
Yes.
When you leave, if you've been to school in Haiti, you had to wear that uniform, and there were different versions of it. So I wanted to build a whole home that was like of plaid, that kind of had that idea. But then when I speak about like Haiti to hood, I have this young man in there, and he's wearing a do-rag. And people could disagree with me, but I feel like a do-rag is really belongs to like African American culture, even though it's worn throughout Black folks across the world. It's really honed in here in America. It's not something you'll see commonly like in Haiti. And so, nor did my parents approve of it. They thought that was something for like vagabonds.
Well, what I like about that is you're demystifying some of those stereotypes, because we kind of, as a people, buy into them too, and don't look at them as a thing that's associated with a particular group. And it is good. It does do something. But so I saw the woman before, and I thought it was symbolic. I recognized the tablecloth, but I thought it was symbolic that she's on the phone. She has all these things that represent her in home, but there's a picture of JFK. I think that's Destiny's Child in the background. So it's that cross-sectionality of Haiti. So I get it, the Haiti to hood. Now, and I love it. And I have a question for you. Like, during this time of COVID, what has helped you to stay focused in all of this uncertainty, and choose to really just take your work up, choose to, still want to share with Elle Magazine and others?
Haitian people, we are resilient. We've heard it a million times, and we know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I come from a family who we've seen it all. Like, my mother survived the earthquake. My father has been through all the dictatorships and all the different time periods of Haiti. And so they kind of instilled that energy in us to always prevail, move on, go forth. And so I'm constantly being inspired by the Haitian folks that are around me, and the stories that they have to share. My mother is an essential worker. She's a home health aide, which is a very common thing for a job for a lot of the Caribbean women who migrate to the US, especially in Brooklyn. And so, I've watched her work through the pandemic. I've watched her constantly put her life at risk to make money, to play this ball game of capitalism. So I share those stories because those inspire me. Those get me hyped. Those get me. And I'm young. I got the energy. So like I'm constantly being fed by my community, by the folks around me, and I want to share those stories. I think the job of artists is when you watch a really good movie and it makes you cry in the end. And sometimes, the dudes don't want to cry and we hold back the tears a little bit. I want to do the same for images and the art that I create. And so that's the role. That's my job as a creative, who's coming from this rich lineage of people who have constantly created different platforms for me.
So, Daveed, the COVID crisis has impacted us all. How has it impacted you, your work process, your own personal mental health, and how is that showing itself within your work?
So a project that I'm working on right now, and I realized needed to happen, was, some people might say, oh, it's not a big deal. There's people who's been affected in much drastic ways. But I think our mental health and how certain things, regardless of how big or small they might seem, it matters. Mm-hmm. And so I graduated last year, and 2020, and it was, for students and youths across the world, across the country, it was very devastating, especially for immigrant youth who struggled just to get to that point of graduating and not feeling fulfilled, not getting that moment to be applauded in the way that you had imagined for so long. something that was so sweet at the end of all that work. And so I thought about myself in that situation and how I was being affected in terms of my education. I'm finishing school through Zoom, and I said, and Converse had hit me up for a job. They're like, okay, I was jogging because I had gained quarantine weight, and I looked at my DMs on Instagram, and it was a producer from Converse, and I'm like, and they wanted to make a campaign, and I said, this is my moment to celebrate myself. I'm gonna put on my cap and gown. I'm gonna build one of my installations, and I'm gonna get this celebration through the best and the biggest platform, through like a Converse ad. And that inspired me to bring that energy and that kind of celebration back into so many people who might have been feeling the same way I have felt, who were in important moments in their lives, who were in pivotal points, and how the camera, how an image could transform you, how it could be a way to talk about stuff or a way to celebrate people. That's what it was doing for me. And so I started off by contacting Flamboyant, and they specifically work with youth who are just coming from Haiti, and they help them through the American education system, and they help the youth graduate and finish school. And so you had dozens of youth from Flamboyant who didn't have a graduation picture. The stuff that you literally that your parents put up on the wall, a symbol of your accomplishment. And I think about what that could do to your self-esteem, what that could do to how you move forward in life. And so I interviewed over 15 students, and I built sets for them. And I work with Tilden Garden, and we set up 3 to 4 photo shoots for the youth. We didn't want it to look like regular photo shoots. We built like full sets. We collaborated on it. And I saw how they opened up to the camera, and I saw what those photos meant to them. This one student said that her mom told her, you finally graduated, even though she had been graduated. That's so. The project necessarily isn't about graduation, but I bring up that example to speak about the kind of exchanges I'm trying to have in the community.
Special shout out to Flamboyant. They're based out in Flatbush, Brooklyn, and the executive director is Darnell Benoit, who's doing excellent work. So I'm glad to know that you're connected to them and you've been able to connect with those youth.
Yes, Darnell is awesome.
Yes. Daveed, your work, you are just more inspiring with every word that you say and everything that you share. And I love how you are not only taking this as an opportunity to develop yourself, but to tap into other people, because those opportunities are things that folks don't get to talk about, to say, hey, I felt like my work probably was in vain, that I did all of this. I hoped to walk across that graduation stage, and it didn't happen. And what you've done is created an avenue for us to see triumphs differently. So I'm still stuck on you starting with Images Heal, so I just want to know what are you expecting? Because at some point we hope to no longer be with mass and things like this. How do you think you can continue to use your work to tap into those issues that too often in our community, especially not just Haitians, but Caribbean communities, we don't talk about mental health and things like that. So let's just give me a little taste of that. What are your plans? What do you see next?
Right now, what's very important for me are 2 things. Community building is so important because, I share this with people that when I was at Parsons, I was so disconnected from my culture. I was disconnected from reality, because you go into these private schools and it's another world. You study, you work, you're not involved and interact with your community. So that's why, for example, it is such a blessing to even be here on this platform as a Haitian talking about the work I do. Because at one point I didn't think people would care about this, especially folks from my own community. And so I'm, volunteering, reaching out, because that helps. If you're trying to do the kind of work I'm trying to do, where you're asking people to be vulnerable with you, you're asking people to trust you, these are intimate things. To say, hey, take my portrait, hey, let's do an art project together. That's intimacy. And so I'm doing everything I can do to be part of these conversations, hang out, and not like in a superficial way, but really, and it's a healing process for me because I'm slowly reconnecting with a avenue of Haitian culture that I was unaware of, the one that exists outside of my home. And the second part of the work that I'm doing is really trying to push my craft. And when I say that, it's important because we have to do good work. It's competitive out here. I'm one of many image makers and photographers and designers. It's New York. So I remember that because we have to put out the best. I have to put out the best. And what that looks like is constantly working in my studio, testing stuff out, creating new ideas, constantly really challenging stuff, So being your best self and always working things out, that's where I am right now and trying to build on community.
That's good. So we started off talking about what you have going on, the project. Let's talk about it. So now if someone, doesn't know much, they want to be a part of it, they want to follow you, just give us a little bit more about Let's Talk About it. I know everything is part of Let's Talk About It, but break it down for us right now.
So the way I'm hosting the photo shoots are we're gonna first, participants, they reach out to me. You can call me, text me, email me, whatever works out for you. And we speak. We just speak on the phone because I never photograph someone without getting to know them at least for a good hour. And then from that from speaking, I'm trying to imagine how that person wants to look in an image. If you go through your parents' like photo albums, you will see your parents knew how they wanted the family to look. They knew how they wanted to look. They knew the backdrops because the studios in Haiti, you picked the backdrop you wanted. Did you want a river? Did you want a mansion? And so trying to understand what people want as their backdrops is important because sometimes I use the backdrops to tell a different story. There was this one kid, he wanted a mansion, which I thought was funny, but at the same time, that showed his aspirations for the kind of work he wanted to do. There was this young woman who wanted to be up in the clouds because that showed her she wanted to be closer to God. And so I work in that way because the image is kind of telling a story about yourself. And so after we've, figured that out, we set up a date and we do a photo shoot. And we talk and we create amazing images and we have a dialogue.
Daveed, a lot of artists, especially here in New York, struggle economically. How do you get the resources and the backing to get your passion financed and also take care of yourself?
That is a very good question.
If you want to tell it.
I want to share because one of the things I hated growing up, I remember teachers never wanted to tell me how much they got paid. They always said they made too little, but it was disrespectful to ask people how much money you make. So I'm very transparent with that. So when I have a couple avenues. As an artist, you could do residency programs. And I'm currently doing one called Define America, which is the new residency I'm doing, which is about telling immigrant narratives. And I plan to tell our narratives. And right now I'm doing the one with the Haiti Cultural Exchange. And those residencies, what they do is they give artists money. They give you a grant. And there's also lots of grants that you apply for to do projects. And in the grants, you use some of the money to pay yourself, but you use some of the money to pay for your project. And also what's most important is I have to continue making great commercial work. So a lot of times editors and people who aren't, might not really understand Haiti to Hood as deeply as other Haitians looking at it do, but they love it visually and they want to sell a Nike shoe. They want to sell a pair of joggers. They want to sell a jean. They want to sell a lifestyle, a dream. That's how we bought all these products, you know? I have a Mac. I saw a Mac commercial of someone who looked like me who had a Mac, and it made me want to buy one. So, you know, I do a lot of freelance commercial work where I'm kind of like using these skills that I've used in my personal work to sell products. So the Converse ad was, you know, that was a fat check that helped me pay my rent for a couple months. And so, and I was taking, but I'm always taking from the original work where my heart is, where my spirit is, and I'm translating that into commercial ads. And so those are the different ways that I make like money as an artist.
And let me just, so as a follow-up to that, you know, we have talent is something that's evenly spread across cultures, across races, and across our local communities. But resources, on the other hand, are not evenly spread out. Do you feel like it was hard for you as a young Black man to be able to find out about those resources and know about them? Or do you think in general, anybody who wants this stuff, it's right there for you to grab?
Thank you so much for asking that. I'm going to answer that, but I don't want to disappear. I'm going to grab my charger to make sure that this laptop doesn't die.
It's cool because
so you have been listening to Shirley Paul and Josier Pierre as we host the wonderful Daveed Baptiste, who is a young, dynamic artist and photographer. We especially wanted to highlight him as we close out Black History Month because we know it is living history. And this young man is definitely not just someone to look out for now, and more likely than not, you've seen his work probably in a Converse ad. He has spreads in Elle and in the New Yorker, but specifically the project that I believe is near and dear to your heart is Let's Talk About It. So you're back. We know we're not going to lose you. We just have a few more minutes, and we're going to let you go back to your creativity. But Josier Pierre, you can answer Josier's question.
Josier, thank you so much for asking that, because it brings me to this next part of resources and myths, and you know, not just in Haitian culture and in communities as like a Haitian immigrant that your parents don't want you to pursue the arts because it's not a viable. They don't think it's viable, and in some cases it's not. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Some artists do, I don't want to say fail, but they don't make the kind of income and money that they would like to. But you think about it this way. There is Netflix. There are all these apps. If you look around you, the clothes y'all have on right now, these are businesses. Fashion is a multi-billion-dollar business. Image making, a multi-billion-dollar business. These are businesses. They work with capitalism. And so I say this because the resources are out there, that the income is coming in, and creatives have to really develop their professionalism the same way. That's part of professional development as a creative, of knowing what your resources are. And I've been lucky to get to a point where I could do this by myself. But before I was at this point, you know, back in Miami, it was all through the work of nonprofits. It was all through the work of nonprofits that took a risk and said, let's make an arts program in the hood. I'm a product of that. Those resources helped me get to this point.
So it's interesting. So as you know, both Shirley Paul and I have worked in government. We pay attention to the budget. New York City, a cultural capital that everybody wants to come to, as you had mentioned before, is in the middle of a budget crisis. And when we are in the middle of budget crisis, we start to say, well, what can we cut? What can we get rid of? And one of the things that seems to be on the chopping block every year, because maybe we don't value it as much or there are other priorities, is funding for culture and art. How does that make you feel, the idea that our city, a city that you basically came to because you wanted to be able to live your dream and achieve these things that you're achieving, and so many thousands of people come to this city for that particular purpose. How do you feel about the idea that we would be cutting spending for cultural and arts and the resources that would let somebody like you be successful?
So those budget cuts, whether it's for the arts or anything, they always affect the people who are at low of the economy and the neighborhoods. It's always Black folks. It's always you know, POC folks. Like it's under-resourced communities and neighborhoods. Those are the ones that and it's crazy because that's where all the swag comes from.
I love that you said that. I love that you said that. I'm sorry, you can keep going.
Because y'all know it, you know, like some of the best.
I mean, look at people aren't catching this, David, but I see your shirt. Like, look at that shirt, right? There's a lot of, you know, you see what I see. I see it. And I think there are a lot of people who don't necessarily see it, but I guarantee you in 6 months, they'll be looking for that pattern.
Yes, and when y'all see it on the streets, just know you saw it on Hack's streaming show first. So back on there, that's who's always affected. When they speak about these budget cuts, they're really targeting. It gives people who want to start programs in these neighborhoods, it takes that away from them. You know, affluent schools, affluent neighborhoods, no matter what the budget cut is, they will always be fine. Their parents will always be able to pay for resources. Mommy, daddy, I wanna do fashion one day. They will find the resources to do that. So when we speak about these cuts, this is who, as both of y'all already know, who it really affects. And I keep on saying I'm a product of that. But and I also think it's I'm not sure, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure what we need to do to have that kind of mental paradigm shift of how we perceive the arts, even though it's something that it is literally our life. It is literally what's kept us through this pandemic. It's all around us. Design thinking. It's you look at these buildings. You look at the clothes on us. You know, I've mentioned these things. You look at the music. You know, we all have a Apple, Spotify playlist, music that gets us through the day. Obama just released his playlist, like through the worst moments when he was in office. So we are making culture. We are existing in culture, and I'm not sure what we have to do to change that mindset, but I could tell you this is who it really affects. This is who they're really talking about when they say there's budget cuts.
Right. Josie, I think that was a great follow-up. And Daveed, I think what you've made me think about is just that it's so important to keep having these conversations, because what you've provided for us today is to see art beyond just the picture, beyond just something that looks nice, that, oh, I'm decorating my place or this. You've used art to challenge what's happening in people's everyday lives, to allow someone to feel celebrated in a non-traditional way, which is way more impactful. Because that same graduation picture, you know, with the little thing that stays on your parents' wall, now they had a chance to choose exactly what it looks like. So I think as we continue to have these conversations, we want to keep talking to you, keep sharing all the bits of this story and the narrative of, and especially the connection to your background. Because, you know, as children of immigrants, we know that there are certain careers that are viewed as more prestigious. So the fact that you were still able to navigate all these challenges and still choose art, it shows us that it is important. Doing that cross connection between fashion, between capitalism, building design, and everything else, it's in everything. It's how people use art is used to influence people to do things, buy things, sell things. So I love that. And before we go, I know we got to go. Just tell us, and even for me, how can, if I want to get on with you and be a part of your Let's Talk About It, how can we find you? How can we continue looking for you? How can we support you?
Yeah, what does your social look like?
So I was just tapping in
just drop in the feed. Okay.
So my email is at Daveed Bap, DaveedBap, at gmail.com, and my Instagram is at Daveed Baptiste. And my phone number, I love when people call and text because people don't usually put their numbers out. Some people are but mine is 917-684-1228. It's the highlight of my day when I complete, like, when someone from the neighborhood hits me up and they're just like, hey, I want to try this out. And I'm just like, yes. And so, yeah, that's how you can contact me and find me.
Yo, I'm on your Instagram right now. I'm seeing the unique work. Give us that Insta handle one more time so people can go log in and check it out.
Okay, got
it. Posted it, I think.
You can tell us what it is too.
Oh, the Instagram handle is at Daveed, Daveed, Baptiste, Baptiste.
Before we go, I want to thank everyone for tuning in and continue to share this on your page. Follow Daveed. We're going to continue looking for your work. I also would like to send a big shout out and thanks to all the nonprofits that continue to use their strength, use their education, and whether large resources or the most nominal, to give folks a chance, because you are the reason why it's important to keep doing this work. You are the reason why it's important to keep encouraging folks to just believe and follow your path. So I thank you so much for joining us. You have made our Black history come full circle. Black history is living history. Follow Daveed. He is at daveedbap@gmail.com, on Instagram, Daveed Baptiste, and we got the official French Daveed, that's Daveed. We thank you so much, Josie Pierre. Thank you for being my co-host, my wonderful co-host. Haitian American Caucus, you are like this dream that started in a basement of just saying, look, we want to highlight our people, our children, and lift as we rise. You are the reason why we keep doing things like this. Just all of us too, but it just warms my heart. And I thank you, Josie Pierre. I send it to you.
Listen, it was a pleasure to have David. For those
Daveed.
of you, Daveed. It was a pleasure to have Daveed with us this morning/afternoon. For those of you who are at home watching this, having that talent nurtured, and he talked about the economics of it, is an investment. These are the reasons why we pay the taxes that we pay, and we push to have resources put into different things. We have to nurture the next generation. For all we know, we see Daveed on HACTV right now, but let's not wait to celebrate him when we see him on CNN and on Vogue magazine, etc. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate HACTV for its commitment to civic life and showing the importance of Black excellence.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, y'all. This was an amazing way to start my day, and thank you for being great moderators and asking these amazing questions. It helped me get everything out. There's nothing that's missing. People know me now, and this platform is amazing. So thank you, HAC.
We appreciate you. Thank you.